Today we start our series on learning to use running blades. Daronia Mulvihill, who's up with Jonathan Edwards straight after this show, is a double below-the-knee amputee. After 12 years of using prosthetic legs to get around, she was inspired by the Paralympics and decided she wanted to learn to run on blades.
So when I was 16, I lost both my legs from meningitis. At the time, I was a runner and I thought that was going to be my life. And then when I lost my legs, I thought, well, that's it, I'm not going to run again. Until I heard that you can get special running legs. It's taken me a long time, but I'm here today. I'm going to get these legs, and it's just the start of the process. So hopefully everything will go well and I will get to run again.
Daronia's life changed forever when she was 16. She contracted meningitis and within hours of getting ill was in intensive care, suffering organ failure and close to death. She pulled through, but the illness left her with gangrene in all of her limbs. And with her life threatened again, her legs and fingers had to be amputated. Not all amputees can use blades. The scarring from meningitis can cause problems with blisters. But Daronia's prosthetist, Donna Fisher, thinks she's a suitable candidate.
When I did go into hospital with meningitis, I was so sick at the time, but they said that the only reason I survived was because I had that level of fitness from doing so much running beforehand.
What we're going to do over the next couple of weeks to make the blades and to get you up on your feet is just the beginning, I hope, because there is a certain amount of training involved in getting you actually going on these.
How much training is involved?
Well, we're probably not going to know until we get you up and get you kind of standing and moving. Then we'll have an idea of how weak you are. And I say how weak you are because I know that you're weak.
Okay.
So, you know, all amputees tend to have weakness.
So, Dan, how important is this today for me, actually, to get these blades fitted?
Well, it's absolutely crucial because we need to get a good socket fit. If you're not comfortable, then you absolutely won't be able to run. OK, Daronia, we have two nice casts, so I'm just going to pop your name on this. I'm going to bring this back now to the workshop in Dublin, and we will get them filled, do some work on them, and when you come back the next day, really, that's going to be the D-Day as to whether we've got a good socket fit. If we can get a good socket fit, then we can get you up on the blades. So hopefully everything will go well from here. And I think it's been quite successful meeting today.
Brilliant.
Well, Daronia's prosthetist, Donna Fisher, is here. So, Donna, when you're fitting someone's prosthetic, you know, you don't really think about what's going into it. It's so technical. What kind of things are you looking at?
Well, the most important thing when you're making a prosthesis is the fit of the socket, and the socket is the part which actually attaches to the person's residual limb. And this is so important because it's about comfort. And you can, I suppose, make a comparison between wearing shoes and wearing a prosthesis. If your shoes are not comfortable, you don't walk very well, and you certainly don't want to walk very far. So the same thing applies with a prosthesis. So our most important point is to get the socket correct and comfortable so that the person will be able to walk properly.
Because, I mean, these are in no way one-size-fits-all. You can't just slip on someone else's blades and get going.
Absolutely not. Everything that we do is custom-made from the blade all the way up to the socket, so it's all a customised piece of equipment, and that would apply to the everyday prostheses that we make as well.
But what are the psychological challenges that people face when they start to use blades? I assume you have to have a lot of trust in something that you can't feel.
Absolutely, and confidence is a huge thing, regardless of whether it's something like a blade or just an ordinary prosthesis. And we would spend a lot of time trying to build up the confidence of the person wearing the limb so that they feel that they can go out and walk and run. And for the likes of the blades, and especially in Daronia's situation, she's a bilateral amputee, as you mentioned earlier. So to imagine not being able to feel the ground, I personally can't imagine it, is a really strange concept. And I think that's the part that's difficult, is that she must build up the confidence and trust these limbs, because that's what she's standing on, that's what she's running on.
And because of the Oscar Pistorius sort of controversy at the moment, we're hearing a lot about balance. How can you tell if the balance is right if somebody doesn't trust them enough to stand properly on them?
It's extremely difficult, and I think hopefully from the documentary that you're going to show, you can see the steps that are involved. No more than this is not something that you take off the shelf and you fit it once. It's a process, and the process is the alignment of the prosthesis, which will influence the balance. That alignment changes as the person learns to use the blades, because they become stronger. Their pattern of running or walking will change, and we have to change the alignment to follow their changes, and it's a huge process to get to the end of, and it's never over. The process goes on, and we're fine-tuning constantly.
We're hearing a lot about the length of the blades. How do you go about deciding what is the appropriate measure?
Well, the length, and certainly from a point of view of the Paralympic sport, is set according to the rules and regulations of the IPC, which is based on the length of the person's torso and the length of their arms. Obviously, with the bilaterals, you don't have the opposite leg to take the measurements from, where a unilateral amputee, you would be matching up to their sound side.
So it's all been sorted with Daronia. How do you think she's going to get on?
Well,
you know, so
it's been so exciting doing this with Daronia, and I hope that it comes across in the documentary, and that people are blown away by what she does, because I certainly am.
Oh, Donna,
it's brilliant.
It's fantastic. It's really, really interesting to see how it all works. Absolutely fascinating. Thanks very much for coming and explaining it to us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
No problem.
At the same time tomorrow, in fact, you can see Daronia travelling to Germany to see her pair of blades being made, and talking to Paralympic sprinter Heinrich Popper.
Now, all week, we're following Paralympics presenter Daronia Mulvihill as she gets blades fitted and learns to run with them. Daronia is a double below-the-knee amputee after she lost her legs to meningitis, aged 16.
Daronia's come to the Ottoblok headquarters in Duderstadt to see her running blades being made. Alongside prosthetics, orthotics and wheelchairs, the company makes around 200 pairs of blades a year.
This department is called composite production. We do different products in here using this type of material, which is called pre-preg material. So carbon fibers.
Hi, Nate.
Hi, Daronia.
So can you tell me how you turn what's essentially a piece of fabric, almost a piece of carbon fibre, into a running blade for someone like me?
Sure. We'll start with the fibre itself. So carbon fibre is just a very pure form of carbon itself. The fibre is very lightweight, very stiff, and very strong. And it comes in several different forms, but what we typically use is either a fabric, which you see here on the mold, so that indicates the fibers are running in both directions, both across the part and along the length of the part. Another form is what we call unidirectional, so all the fibers run in one direction. And that's one of the advantages of carbon fiber, is we can orient the fiber and therefore the strength of the material in whichever direction we want. So we put it on layer by layer. Each layer is roughly 0.006 of an inch thick.
Tiny, basically.
Very, very thin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And how many layers would you be talking about?
Depending on the stiffness of the spring, it could be anywhere from 70 layers up to almost 100 layers. Wow. For someone who is jogging, like you would plan to do.
First off, anyway,
right,
definitely.
We would make the spring slightly softer to begin with. Heiko is putting the mold into the autoclave. We apply vacuum, so we pull all of the air outside of the vacuum bag, which is surrounding the mold, and then apply pressure into the autoclave, which then consolidates all the individual layers and cures out the part. The process takes 1.5 to 2.5 hours, depending on the resin system. And the process then is to remove the part from the tool, from the mold, and then we mill the edges so that we have the final shape and geometry of the part at the end of the day.
So this is what comes out of the oven?
This is what comes out. So this is fully cured. All the individual layers have been consolidated into one spring.
Great.
And we'll check the stiffness, we'll check the strength of it before we then package it and send it out the door.
I like this.
That's one-axis testing machine for your blades, actually. After they got finally cut, we want to ensure that you have a safe use. We want to prevent any breakage. We do testing of the blades with up to 300,000 load cycles, and the load is up to 150 kilogram, so more than 2.5 times the body weight of the users.
Heinrich Popov is one of Germany's top Paralympians. He runs in the T42 sprint events on a single blade, and he's come to the local track to give Dorania some tips.
So Heinrich, I've got to be honest, the thing that really worries me is falling on the track or falling off the blades. What was your biggest fear when you started?
Yeah, it was falling too. It felt really bad, but my coach told me the first sessions after half an hour to go home, and I was just like, I was trying to run, and then we changed from trying to run into first learn to fall down. Yeah, and then after I learned to fall down, I was much more comfortable on my blade. When I started feeling comfortable on the blade was 2003, 2 years later.
Well, that's good for me to manage my expectations, just to know that for like a high-class athlete like you, it still took time to get to the stage where you're comfortable. And I've heard some horror stories about cuts and blisters and wounds. How bad does it really get?
I saw some problems with blood clots when you get the suction and then you get the blood of the stump, but that's okay. You have to go.
It doesn't sound okay.
No, it is. It is not that bad. It looks bad. It looks really bad, but it's like a big pimple.
So Heinrich, if I was to put you on the spot right now and ask you to tell me your #1 absolute top tip for being a good blade runner, what would it be?
It is the €2 tip. I have to bring my €2 coin between my bump from the starting line into the finish line. That makes me safe on the prosthetic and makes my hip all the time being in forward and running comfortable. It's like it's a virtual €2, but I have to think about that all the time.
So it's all about clenching?
It is, yeah.
Well, isn't everything? And tomorrow, we follow Dorania's first tentative steps in the blades.